What up, y'all? It is Jamba here on this Saturday morning. Okay, so I have admittedly, I've seen it one time. I saw this video by Planned Parenthood called What is Virginity? A Planned Parenthood video. And there was this black woman, I believe, um, basically breaking down virginity. And I wanted to kind of rewatch it because I didn't really have any concrete thoughts on it at first. But I know some people were kind of breaking it down, and I didn't want to watch those videos. I'd rather just make my own. What is virginity? Okay, let's just dig in here. Okay, let's dig in.
Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women.
Let's rewind.
What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems. For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen.
Is this video for kids? It seems like this video is for kids, mainly because she's in a classroom setting, and not like a classroom like a college classroom, but like a kid's classroom. Like this is presented even with like the music and this is kind of presented like this is made for kids. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing. It was just something I find interesting.
Doesn't actually mean anything. That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't
Some chunky ass. Was that what? Did she just draw her fingers? Sorry, it was just something I noticed.
doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different things to different people. Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex, and choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead? And not everyone's first sexual experience is consensual, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex. There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense. Either way, shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining? Because the truth is, when we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self insight, pleasure, and empowerment. All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember: sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time. Maybe it's having anal sex. Maybe it's having
Okay,
virginity.
it's a lot of that was kind of a lot. Let me actually do some commentary now because I actually just wanted to just sit there and actually watch the video for a change before just chiming in. Um, so let's rewind it now. Now I'm going to do the little bit of a breakdown.
Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made up concept.
Most concepts are made up though. There's a lot of concepts are usually made up, right? Usually, like basketball is a concept. It was made up by people. right? Well, it's a sport, but yeah. So I don't.
It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. Mm.
Now that's a good theory. That's a good theory that it was created simply to control people. But my question is this: number one, where is I would have respected this video a little bit more if they gave like if they brought up since we are in the classroom, if they brought up some sort of a history lesson, or if they brought up you know, where it came from, if they found the an ancient, like, where does the if Virginia is a construct, where does it actually come from? You know, like where can we trace it back to African or you know, European, like where some sort of patriarchal society, like where does it actually come from? If because you're just gonna just like say a thing, then you got to kind of substantiate it, since you know, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that you just saying it, and just because you know you're in these nice kind of hipster glasses and you're in a classroom and you got a, you know, fancy editing and all that, just doesn't mean I'm just going to go with it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the video could have broke it down that way, just to solidify, because you're just saying it was just made to control and shame people. Now, my second question is, if the concept of virginity was created to quote unquote control and shame people, let me just make sure that's what she said, right?
People, mainly women, control and shame people.
Okay, control and shame people. So she did say that. So if it was created to control and shame people, then why was it created to control them and to shame people into doing what, or into not doing what, for what purpose? Because usually people create these concepts for, there's a certain reason as to why virginity was a thing. Now, from what I understand, and she didn't talk about this really whatsoever. That's what I kind of know, that this video is not kind of hidden, and people are kind of, you know, criticizing it, like, or what I believe is because virginity is, back in the day where you had societies and you had, you know, like villages and things of that nature, you know, men didn't quite, if I'm with a woman and I have sex with a woman and she has my kid, I don't know for sure that that's my kid unless I know that she's a virgin before I got with her. So if you're dealing with a woman and she's not a virgin, and she's possibly having sex with other people and she has a kid, well, I as a man am not going to feel paternally um obligated to raise or rear or provide for that kid, because she has, again, you have to like think like how it was back in the day, right? Because she has not proven herself to be sexually monogamous with one person. Because if she's sexually monogamous to me, then I would be thrusted not just by my own paternal instincts, but by society, to provide and work and, you know, basically raise or help raise that child. So she hasn't talked about this at all in the video. I mean, maybe at the end. No, she probably didn't. I don't need to watch the ending to know that she probably didn't. Yeah, she wasn't breaking that down. So to my understanding, they should have added at least some reason as to why this is a thing. And the fact that they didn't, and the fact that they like just glossed over that aspect, glossed over the societal aspect, glossed over, you know, like why these were a thing that these patriarchal men cared about, just kind of lets me know that there's a little bit of bullshit afoot. Just a little bit. Granted, because again, you could have easily kind of tapped into that, but let's keep watching.
Mainly women. Mm. A virgin.
Yeah. Well, the reason why it's more so attributed to women is because, again, they have kids, right? It's mothers, maybe something something. I forget what the term was, but it's something, mama's baby, daddy's maybe. So you know, if a woman has a kid, you know it's their kid because that woman had a kid, but you don't know exactly if it's that guy's kid. So yes, logically, virginity is probably going to matter more for the women is because they're the ones who have the kid. It's not because we just again we just got to think logically about these things. This is really simple shit.
Is someone who's never had sex. But it's not as simple as it seems. For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff with the hymen is she's right about it. I've heard this stuff before. I've heard these things before, but a person losing their virginity is not necessarily about the physical changes, but also about the mental changes. Most men understand that prior to them having it's kind of like I'll just talk for the men since she's kind of speaking more so about women. I'll speak for the men, right? How you are before you have sex as a man versus after is it's not a complete you're not going to make a complete 180, but it is a pretty it's a big difference. That's a big deal for you kind of mentally. It's like once you kind of experience that as a young man, whether you're 16, 17, 18, for some guys, they lose their virginity in their early 20s and shit like that. It's a there's a difference. There's a change that does happen, at that moment when you're engaged with that woman. Like I think that your priorities kind of might shift. Like you might go from, okay, my priority is school and sports, and then you have sex for the first time and like I got to keep on doing this shit. So, and then you start going a little crazy. And something similar could happen with women as well. It's something also too. The thing about virginity is, again, because she's only talking about like a a very small portion of it with just the physical and all that, but there's also like a bonding aspect that happens. Like most people, you have people who, men and women, who have sex with dozens, if not hundreds of people. But and on top of that, they don't even remember who the sexual partners that they've had. They don't remember the 13th guy or the 12th woman or the 30th guy or girl or whatever. It's like, but 9 times out of 8, they usually remember who they lost their virginity to. They could tell you their name. They could tell you, where they were at. They could tell you, how the bedroom smelled, and what happened, and how he went quick or whatever, and how they felt and how they were in pain. Like they can usually go into detail about that experience, but rarely can they go into detail about like the 40th or like the 28th person that they had sex with. So it's a lot of it is a mental thing. And she's not really talking about that.
That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing.
Also, the reason why this is all like this doesn't really matter is because men, first of all, I'm not does this video have any okay, there's no comments to this video. Maybe they turn off the comments because this video has had 115,000 views, so not that many. Um, Men aren't judging virginity. First of all, men don't judge virginity. Like men are not looking for virgins. That's number one. Like they don't like most men. Um, they're you may have some contingent of like maybe religious men who would prefer a virgin, but they're like it's just so rare that it's damn near unreasonable to ask if you're a man over the age of like 20 fucking 3 or 22, then you asking for a virgin is just gonna be like a no-go. So I'm not sure like where this is actually coming from. And you actually come across far more male virgins nowadays than you'll come across a female virgin. But I think men kind of understand that a woman can. This is informed. This is a video for the people who may not know. So okay, I like I said, this video is more than likely for kids or for teens. So let me not assume that people kind of know this stuff already.
Doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. And
You can, but you can tell by like other shit. Not even it's not like by the physical. You could just tell by. I'll give you just one way you can tell. If a woman had got tattoos, you know she's not a virgin. She got tattoos. You off the rip, and I know there's probably one or two virgin women with tattoos, but I'm saying more times than not, if a girl got a tattoo, she definitely had sex before. Because it doesn't really make any sense for a woman to be like to say no to dick, but yes to a needle, putting ink on their body for the rest of their life. The dick usually comes before the needle. Dick first, needle second. And I'm saying not a drug needle, but like the tattoo needle. So, anyways,
Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different things to different people.
that's silly because we know, generally speaking, what sex means. Generally speaking, sex is a physical act between two people, usually involving a penis, usually involving a vagina or some sort of orifice until one or both or what have you. But and sometimes obviously people don't climax, during sex or whatever. But generally speaking, we have a pretty unified definition of what sex is. So like two people are not going to say, I had sex with that person, but they were in two different rooms and they were just texting each other like sexing. Like no one would say that sexing or phone sex is actual quote unquote sex. This is silly. We know what sex means. It is not this whole everybody has a different definition. No, that's not the case. There is a general definition of it. And among that general definition, you have like kind of types of sex. This is not so this is some horse manure right here. I gotta charge my laptop.
Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex?
It's even with those people, it'll still be either one or the other, right? Because more than likely they have one of those things and they would engage in sex with those things, the penis or vagina. Most sex isn't like that's what I'm saying. Like it's not like she's trying to use the exception to disprove the rule. The exception would be the different types of sex that people have that are queer and blah 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 blah. But even more times than not, with most, and I'm not trying to get into specifics, but even with most gay men, they're usually having sex with their like we. This is just what we know. Very silly stuff, man.
And choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead.
Then that will be sex. Then it's still under the umbrella. Yeah, if you still apply the word virginity even to gay men. If a gay man a gay man can no one is going to say that a gay man is still a virgin because he hasn't had vaginal sex before. He's only had the gay anal sex or whatever, so therefore he's not a virgin. No one is fucking saying this. No one. Not even straight guys. It's just not. We know what this is. Like I don't.
And not everyone's first sexual experience is consensual, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex. There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it.
Hold on, I gotta charge my laptop, and then through the power of editing, you're not even gonna know the difference. And we're back, and my laptop is charging. Okay, good. Okay, so where were we? Right.
Pressure on men for not having sex, on who, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex.
Also, with the whole this, so I think most sane people wouldn't. I guess that's a good question in regards to like, are you a virgin if you were forced into sex? The pressure thing, that's some touchy stuff because what does pressure, what does that kind of, what does that look like? Because you're kind of, the problem even with that is because she's kind of putting, and I know you have like the whole coercion thing or what have you. And this is why, men, I would advise never to even remotely try to get a woman to engage with you sexually, like, because it's tricky. So now we have like the laws are in, the things have obviously kind of shifted. So if you pressure a woman, then it's underneath the same umbrella as coercion, which is like right next to the R word, right? So, and that's kind of what she's talking about. But moving that aside, a person who is forced. I mean, I don't know. I don't really, you know. I guess my whole thing with this, even this video and like what this is implying, I don't, because virginity is not even a thing that we even, it's not even like a thing anymore like that. At least I don't think so. I don't think that this is. I don't think we're even close to a society where judging people, mainly women, by their virginity is even like something that we held women or anybody to that standard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. That's why I'm trying to figure out like what's the overall point of this video, because we've already kind of gotten to a point in society where women are far less judged for their sexual, for what they do sexually. Like we're so far from the whole virginity conversation, in my opinion. She is gonna say something here that she's gonna say one thing that I do agree with here. Um,
There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense.
I I agree with that. I agree with that, but she's also not, to be fair. Like, I'm agreeing with her. I'm not. She's not just saying all, kind of, she's not on BS most of the time. I do agree with this. However, she's still not addressing the why. She's talking about the what, but not the why. Now, the reason why we pressure men to not have, the reason why we make, basically what she's saying is we make fun of virgins, but we shame women who aren't virgins. Now, the second part of what she said is not really true. We don't shame women nowadays for not being virgin necessarily. Well, that's not what she said. She said that we shame women for having sex,
Exact same time they shame women for having it.
which is also not true. We don't shame women for having sex now. If anything, we might shame women for the amount of men that they have sex with. If you have a married woman bragging about all the sex that she has with her married man, most men are not going to come on the comment section and talk about she a hoe, she having sex with her husband who she loves and adores her. No one's doing that. But if she's bragging about it, like, having sex with 15 guys over a 3-day Memorial Day weekend, then yeah, she's definitely more than likely going to get shamed for it, mostly by guys. So again, now on the men's side of things, because I'm not saying that I agree with shame in either direction. Like not really. Guys just gotta, gotta get over that shit on both ends. But with the guys' point of view, having acquiring sex for us is more difficult. So if you are seen as a guy who can't have sex with women, then there must be something wrong with you, and therefore you must be shamed because you are deficient in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you're deficient socially, maybe you're fat, maybe you're just awkward, maybe you're lame, or like. So that's why. So it's not the fact that you haven't had sex; it's more so of the why. Again, the why. Get to the why.
Make it make sense. Either way,
I just made it make sense. Makes sense to me.
shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away.
Why? Because watch how I debunk this. I'm not even gonna like talk about women. I'll debunk it using men. Watch this. Watch how I debunk it. Watch this.
Shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's
Yes, it does, because we shame men who want to have sex with little people, if you know what I mean. I'm not talking about mini me little people. I'm talking about actual little people. Yes, we should shame depending upon what it is sexually, because you got some people who have certain kinks that are problematic. You got men who unfortunately enjoy forcibly having their way with women, and that's what they like, unfortunately. So yes, those things should be shamed. You got men who get off on showing their dick to people in the fucking parking lot. That should be fucking shamed. You got teachers, man or woman, but usually women who like to have sex with and again, that's going back to, the whole pedophilia. But my point is that, yeah, even you got men, for example, who like having sex with a lot of women and getting them pregnant and being a deadbeat dad and not taking care of their kid. Or you got men who have fucking diseases and HIV and fuck without. And I know that's kind of going into, like being responsible. But yeah, there are things regarding sex that you absolutely should fucking shame. Absolutely. And it's up to us or the people to look and decide, okay, yeah, we gotta, that's fucked up, sir. So I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining? Because the truth is, when we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves.
But what are you, I know she's gonna get into what are you gaining, but the virginity is also a synonym for innocence. Um, so it's like I lost my roller coaster virginity. So like I never been on a roller coaster, and I went to Six Flags, and now I'm no longer like a roller coaster virgin. So it's just we just like, that's all it is. And sometimes, like, being a virgin to something, it is like you're losing that ignorance or that innocence of it, because now you know what it is. So I still think we can keep the concept, because that concept doesn't just apply to sex. You can apply it to a whole myriad of things, right?
Up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self insight, pleasure, and empowerment. All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful.
Then what do we call it then? What do we if you want to replace, my whole thing is this: if you want to get rid of something, then cool. But what is the word, what is the catch-all word like virginity that you're going to replace virginity with? So instead of us losing virginity, you are like, what is it, what is the, because all of these things here that she said, watch this, all of these things that she said, okay, watch.
It's like intimacy, self insight, pleasure, and empowerment.
Problem with those four things, right? Let's break all of it down really quickly. Okay, intimacy. Um, a lot of times when a person has sex, because we're just talking about the act of having sex for the first time, right? If you want to change the losing your virginity with something, right? So the problem with the first thing is that in a lot of cases, that first act of having sex, it's not really fucking intimate, especially if you're talking about like a teenage boy who's trying to fucking get the condom on and shit. It's not the intimacy. That's not a fucking guarantee. Self insight, no. Pleasure for a lot of women, hell no, because a lot of women, especially for their first time, are not getting pleasure. And they'll tell you, ladies, if I'm wrong, please let me know. Was your first time like amazing, or was it usually like pretty fucking bad? Because I've been told that it's usually pretty damn bad. And empowerment, that's such like this weird word. What does that even mean? Like what? Now, if she's talking about like sex in general, then sure, because you can have self insight and intimacy and pleasure from people if you're engaging in sexual activity with a person that or a relationship, or your spouse or whatever like that, or just a friend. That makes sense. But we're talking about having sex for the first time. So virginity is about your status that you haven't had it, and then you're losing. It's like you're just base. It's just a status symbol. It's like you're losing that status. You have now lost the virginity status, and you are now no longer a virgin. It doesn't have anything to do with intimacy or all this other shit. You're just adding a bunch of shit that you can't even like really quantify it into efficient a term as losing your virginity.
All of these myths around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember. Sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time.
No, no, it's not. It can't be just defined by you. It can't be defined by you because if you here's the reason why it's I'm using her own shit because a man can believe that he was having sex with the woman and that it was consensual. It was just sex. But when you break down the way in which it occurred, it 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 probably was a problematic way. Like I just don't it just doesn't make any sense. You can't just make it so that everybody has their own definition of what this thing is. That's dangerous.
Maybe it's having anal sex. Maybe it's having your first orgasm. Maybe it's masturbating for the
This
first.
is also dumb. You can't say, well, I had sex with this person that I shouldn't have had sex with, but technically it wasn't sex in my how I see it because I didn't orgasm.
Time, or when you enthusiastically consent to sex. That's the beauty of your sexual journey. You're in charge and you can figure it out on your own terms. Choosing to have sex, when, what kind, where, who with, is something that only you get to define.
All right. Sponsored by Planned Parenthood. Yeah, that's kind of my how much time that I oh 30 minutes. But yeah, that's my assessment of this video. I think it probably had some noble intentions. I just think that there was a lot more that they could have explained or elaborated on, and they only kind of focus on one very narrow. It's like they talk about how virginity itself is defined very narrowly, but this video itself was very narrow in the way in which they were presenting this information. But anyways, please like and subscribe, and I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'm very hungry, so I'll see you soon.